I want to introduce Nicole Fonasher. I'm going to read a little blurb about her. She's amazing. She actually spoke at my other son's school, which is how we got her here because we thought she was so great. We wanted to have her talk to you guys. Nicole created Y Community College, which is a social media page that seeks to support community college students who are looking to transfer to a four-year university, as well as offer advice to students considering attending community college. She founded it last year, and the organization's overarching mission is to debunk the harmful stereotype of junior colleges as low-quality education for directionless students. So we want to welcome her here, and the way we're going to do this is Nicole might have some questions for you. And if she does, please respond to those questions in the chat. She likes to get some feedback from you. But then at the end, we'll do a Q&A like we normally do, where you can send questions to me at Questions Kristen Swift, and I'll just ask those one at a time so it doesn't get confusing for her to have to look at. So I hope that all works for everybody. And now I will turn it over to Nicole.
Thank you so much. This is so exciting to be here. I love talking about community college, and it was actually taking me a blast of the past a bit hearing the language of motions and voting, because I actually was president of the student body at my community college, so I led a lot of these meetings. I'm very familiar with the lingo, and I sat here thinking, wow, this is really bringing me back. So thank you for having me. Let me just try to figure out how to share my screen, and I'll go ahead and get started here. I am actually not too sure how I did this last time. Oops. I think this might be okay. Okay. Yeah, I think that's okay. So hello everyone and happy Monday. My name is Nicole and I use she, her pronouns. I am a proud Ohlone College alumna and I'm going into my 4th year at UCLA, majoring in psychology and minoring in education. Today I have the incredible honor of sharing with you all something I hold near and dear to my heart. It's what has shaped me, it's what has grounded me, and is none other than my community college experience. And in this presentation, I'll actually be debunking some myths, sharing my own takes on them. We'll also talk about what my Y Community College initiative is, and we'll be going over the degree agreements you may have heard of before called ADT and TAG. And I would love to hear at any point during this presentation your thoughts. So really feel free in stopping me whenever you have something to say. The chat is all yours for the taking, and I will also be staying to answer some questions at the end. And so without further ado, here we go. And let me see if I can actually, oh, there you go. That's how I do it. that's much better. So I wanted to open this up with a general question. What have you heard about community college? And this can be anything: the cost, the social life, quality of education, really, truly anything. You can be totally honest. And again, you can type something in the chat, or you're feeling up to it. You're more than welcome to unmute yourself as well.
I heard it's free if you fill out a FAFSA. And
so I heard someone say that you heard it's free. That is true. They actually put that in right after I left community college. So I checked in with one of my friends who was actually working as a community college counselor at Ohlone College, and she confirmed that it is free now. And I'm seeing that people are saying PCC is a great deal. It absolutely is. I actually have quite a few friends who I met at UCLA who are actually living in my same apartment building who did attend PCC. It is the same quality education as a university. That is so true. You will actually have professors who will teach at 2 universities. So you'll see them teaching at a CC, and then you'll also see them teaching simultaneously at a university. So I had a professor who worked at Berkeley on some days, and then he would come to teach us as well. I've heard that for many that community college is a great option. Absolutely. It's why I'm here. It's what I preach. I've seen that it's hard to get the classes you want because they're oversubscribed. Actually, so I've heard some people saying this. My personal experience is that I actually had no trouble in getting the classes I needed. There was actually an instance where I had to sit in it on classes, and I wasn't even on the wait list, and I was able to get in because they made space. But this was also when class was in person too, so I think it was a bit more exceptional. And then you can talk to your professors very easily. I am best friends with my professors from community college. I will agree with that. And I'll take this one last one. It can give students time to hone in on educational goals without high cost of university. Yes, I am very happy with the amount of money that I saved by attending CC. And of course, because I'm here today, I'm super pleased with the quality of education I received as well. But not everything is as awesome as everyone is making it out to be, because there is a stigma that hangs over community colleges. So when I speak to students, I really like to ask them, what have you heard? And a lot of what I hear are all this sort of dead end thinking, a lot of skepticism, opportunities to be successful, many of which persisted and continue to manifest as hurdles for students that want to pursue higher education. These are very common beliefs about the community college experience. It's why a lot of students don't necessarily see this as a number one option for them. And even when they do pursue CC, it takes them a while to get acclimated in appreciating what CC has to offer. All these beliefs, I very much fell victim to. I had internalized them down to the very core. But while the prevalence of these statements may warrant some inkling of truth, if these statements did in fact hold this iron grip of accuracy, then it would have been impossible for me to be who I am today, to reflect and value what has been by far the most transformative period of my life. And now you must be wondering, well, what changed and how? So this is me graduating from my local high school in 2017, which feels like forever ago. But the distance in time isn't really what makes me feel so far from this. It's the distance from that mentality I had in high school, a mentality a lot of my peers who attended CC with me shared as well, that high school was a very interesting time. There's a reason why there are so many question marks on this slide, because I just felt so deeply, oh, oops. Sorry about that. My mail just popped up. Deeply directionless. I was in an interesting spot. I knew I had to get an education. I knew I wanted to go somewhere reputable, if you will. But if you would ask me what I wanted to accomplish in my life, you would get nothing but a blank stare in return. As a student in high school, I know that at some point, college had to have crossed the minds of us and made its way into conversations. It was in all of my conversations. I was in advanced courses with talented peers who knew exactly what they wanted, and I simply didn't know what I wanted. And eventually I stopped caring about the education I was getting. Sure, I was a passing student, but I was also a purposeless one. So does anyone want to guess what the number on the slide means? It's related to everything that we've talked about thus far. And you can go ahead and put your answers in the chat as well. So someone says, how many transfer out to university? That's a good guess, but it's not. Ratio community college students accepted to a 4-year? No. 8 out of 10 statement not correct. Someone says also 8 out of 10 people go to CC. I'll take just one or two more, and then I'll tell you what this number means and how it pertains to me. Any last guesses? That's okay, I'll give you the answer. So I had applied to 10 colleges straight out of high school, 8 of which rejected me on the spot. So the worst part was that, again, I was surrounded by amazing people who worked so hard and got in here and got in there. But I'm betting you can imagine what kind of emotional and evaluative toll this takes on a high school student, since high school students were just so impressionable. Everything is so uncertain and weird, and at times just really intimidating. And ultimately, I was really unhappy with myself. And then I made the choice to go to community college. And this is where what it meant to get an education really redefined itself for me. I ended up graduating with highest honors. I received 3 degrees. I worked as a peer mentor under the Counseling Center, helping students navigate their transition into college. I was accepted to serve in the first ever cohort of student wellness ambassadors in my health center, and I spoke to my graduating class as president of the student body. And keep in mind, these were things that I never dreamed of being within my reach, especially after the series of disappointing and discouraging things that happened to me in high school, things that sought to brand myself as a failure, things I believed to be definitive of my worth and capabilities, and most importantly, ideas that affirm all the stigmas that I mentioned earlier. So I came in with little expectations, stopped believing in myself. But then during my time in community college, just wow, what a place that was. I met a principal who wanted to take a language class to make one of the students feel more at home. I met a young mother who worked during the day and took art classes at night, sacrificing sleep for her education and her children. I met students who slept in their cars, students with food insecurities, students who are undocumented, met students who were the first in their family to graduate from high school, held multiple jobs to pay for their classes, students who were veterans, foster youth, returned to college after a long hiatus to finally get the degree they always dreamed of. It really was here that I learned what it means to be human, to not survive, but to instead live, to rise gracefully from adversity, and most importantly, to be proud of my narrative, for it is what makes me me. And I owe this not really even to myself. I owe it to everyone at my community college, and I owe it mostly to my first ever college professor, Dr. Narula, who I'm still very close with today. We keep in touch through email, we send some updates to each other. So she was the first person to believe that I deserved a second chance, that I could be something I could look back and smile on. And this slide was what she had said to me that completely turned my life around. This was when I was having the most difficult time being proud of myself. She redefined what an educator's role is. She's why I wanted to become a professor myself. She's why I just wanted to try. And she didn't have to go up to me after class and ask me how I was doing. This wasn't in her job description. She didn't have to notice I was an individual, a human being, taking her class instead of simply seeing me as just another student. And what was so profound was that this feeling of being seen, heard, and valued was something I felt consistently and throughout my time at community college. Just transformative, absolutely transformative. That was how community college was for me. That and the people in it are the reasons I felt my feet touch the ground. It made me hopeful. And if you know what it feels like to feel the opposite, you know how hard it is to change that. But this place did it effortlessly and helped me find out what it means to be me. And you know, my experience isn't unique. It's wonderful, but it's not unique. There are a lot of other students out there who share in the same pride of being a community college student and who agree with me that the time they spent at their community college was pivotal to discovering themselves. That's why I founded the platform of community college, of Y Community College. I'm now at my 1-year anniversary of transferring to UCLA. I'm graduating next quarter. And while this transition has moved me and stretched me in unthinkable ways, this page has become a constant for me. I look at this page and it brings me back to that sense of hope. We now have 300 plus followers on Instagram, 270 plus followers on Facebook, 19 transfers and counting across multiple academic disciplines who have joined the Y Community College Network to help others. And we have partnered with a counselor from my alma mater. Her name is Taylor. I mentioned her earlier. And we've been recognized by a multitude of reputable organizations, been written about in UCLA student-run newspaper. I mean, the support has just been incredible, and I'm so thankful. But most of all, this page is proof that the conversation around community college is changing. It's evidence that the stigma is weakening. We have a lot of work to do, but transfers are just here on the front lines. And all of this. So These are some screenshots from the page. This all just happened within a span of a few months. We were all was just waiting to be heard and so ready to lift one another up. Why community college is an opportunity to destigmatize and to be a cheerleader for students. Our purpose is to elevate and amplify these voices. The goal is that when you go through this page, it will make you feel how community college felt for me and for many. Supported, seen, heard, validated, and just very proud. Community college students have such rich perspectives, resilient in every sense of the word. In community college, you really get to see why that word community is in it in the first place. And if you look, there are so many lovely faces on this feed. Those are actually members of the Y Community College Network. The black squares are the transfer stories. The colored squares are tips for transfers from transfers. The ones with red quotations are things transfers wish people knew about community college. And the ones with the colorful triangles are questions students have submitted to me and that I and Taylor as well have answered. I'll just give a few seconds so you can, if you're reading one of the pictures on the slide. And I wanted to share some of what the transfers had to say from the page. So this is a transfer story. I had to go to night school to graduate from high school. I attended one semester of college after high school, and in my second semester walked away from college to work. When I returned, I learned I was on academic probation. I was a returning adult student, going back to college at 25, and everyone from the faculty to counseling and financial aid told me it was okay and that I could bounce back and do whatever I set my mind to do. When I thought I was only going to attend the CSU campus up the street, I was encouraged to apply broader and to UC campuses, which I was admitted to several and afraid to move away. I was given contact information for students who had transferred the year prior. The community college allowed me a second chance to show that I was not only capable, but deserving of the best education and educational experiences that I could imagine. They gave me the confidence not only graduate from one of the best institutions in the world, but continue to earn a doctorate degree. So I'm wondering if anyone has any initial thoughts in hearing that story. And I will admit that, and when I do go through these stories, may or may not be shedding some tears because they're just that powerful. And just to think that I was at a school or I'm a part of a community that has such resilient people in it is truly such an honor. So someone had a message to me that the message is so great, all high school students should hear this. Yeah, that's why I'm pushing forth Y Community College. Someone says, thank you. I transferred from LACC to UCLA and earned both a BA and MA there. Oh, go Bruins. It's a great way to experience higher education. Someone else is saying such an encouraging story. It really is. And when they do submit these stories, everyone has an opportunity to join the Y Community College Network, and that allows you to serve as a resource for other transfers. This is one of the wonderful people that make up that our little cohort. And this is something one of the community college students wished people knew about community college. So let me pull this up. Okay. Community college is absolutely not the same as high school, as some people say. I say this for multiple reasons, but your first 2 years of university is the same as however long it takes you to transfer out of community college. Classes are so much cheaper in community college, and you are able to get several AA degrees, while at university, you have to keep working for a BA, BS. There are professors who work for both community college and at a university, and the classwork is almost exactly the same. Another thing, it does not take 2 years to finish at community college. Everyone, and I mean everyone, has to go through their own unique journey. I took 5 years to graduate from Ohlone College, but I came out with 5 AA degrees and 1 certificate. And now that I am at SJSU, I plan on getting my bachelor's degree in business with a concentration in human resource management and a minor in education. As cliche as it sounds, Anything is possible if you surround yourself with people who truly care about you. Any initial thoughts about this transfer story? That's very kind of you. Someone said, fantastic presentation. It would be great for our kids to hear this, maybe during sophomore, junior year. I know. I was actually talking to the counselor Taylor, and I was saying, wow, we have in our current positions, we can totally see that community college is a fantastic choice, but the real challenge is making this meaningful for younger students, because they value different things, which is totally understandable. I was in that same position. So hopefully as we do more of these presentations and we have more transfer voices step up, and more bridges becoming more collaborative, we really inspire more students to choose this path. Someone is also saying, sounds like CC has supportive community, which we don't always hear about university. Yeah, I will say that when I transferred to UCLA, you could tell who was a transfer and who was not a transfer. All the transfers, just for some reason, we were all part of this unspoken family, very close to one another. So easy to relate to one another too. Someone says, can you talk about how you transition between, my transition? How did you make friends connections? I will totally answer that towards the end, because I know that's a very common question that people have for me. But hold that thought, and I will definitely answer that in as much detail as I can. Which community do you recommend for for this question of which community do you recommend for South Pasadena school district students, Taylor actually looked into what websites would be relevant to your high school in particular. And I will be sending that in the chat so that everyone can copy and log that somewhere, just to make that easily accessible as well. Great question. So if you decide to go to community college, and this is just a message that I hope that you all can pass to students or anyone who's younger. If you decide to go to community college, you are not behind. You're not a failure. Your college of choice is not a measure of your worth. I have sat with students and I have had them repeat this to me, because this is a real issue. I tell them that you have the agency in defining what getting your education means for you, and you have the chance in community college to be rooted on and explore what it is exactly that makes you you. And my favorite quote ever is from this really famous neurologist, Viktor Frankl, who said, and I quote, "Everything can be taken from a human but one thing, the last of the human freedoms, to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances, to choose one's own way." So everyone is able to tap into their capacity to learn and to grow, but you really have to let yourself be in that position. You really have to allow yourself to explore what really brings the you out. I know that when I transferred to my 4-year, I wasn't moving on to bigger and better things. I had given a goodbye speech to our board of trustees, and I said this exact same thing. I wasn't moving on to bigger and better things. I am simply continuing to go in the right direction, able to look back, see how far I've come, and to really feel thankful for the people who have added more meaning to my life every step of the way. And just because I love where I am now, it doesn't mean I love where I was any less. So hopefully now you are convinced, and you're saying to yourself, community college rocks, let's do it. If that's what you're thinking, then fantastic, I am right there with you. But if not, that's totally okay. Yet you must be wondering, well, how does one go about transferring? To answer this, I talked to Taylor, who again is the amazing community college counselor that Y Community College is so fortunate to have partnered with. She gave me an incredibly informative rundown on what an associate degree for transfer is and what a transfer admission guarantee is. She has even made herself available via email, so for you all, just in case you have more questions about this, and her email's on the bottom right of the slide. So huge shout out to her. because all the information I'm about to give you is what she taught me, and I could not be more thankful. And even after her and I were catching up this past week, we are saying, wow, we like it's just so good to be reminded how important it is that we're involved in this line of work. And like I said, Taylor has also provided a list of links in which I will put in the chat so that you can refer to them after this presentation. And I think I actually have it saved here. Oh, maybe I'll just add it later. It's not letting me post anything, but I'll definitely add those links when I can. But as for the degree agreements, so you've probably heard of the ADT, which stands for the Associate Degree for Transfer, and TAG, which stands for Transfer Admission Guarantee. Both promise you a spot in a 4 years so long as you fulfill certain requirements, and these promises are actually exclusive to community college students. So in other words, as a community college student, you are guaranteed admission into a 4-year university if you follow either of these plans. And I will say that after when I was having this conversation of these agreements, I said to her, "Wow, like why wouldn't someone want to go to community college?" And I'll go more into depth about the reasons of or the benefits of following these plans in just a second. So first, let's start with the ADT. So you can get an associate degree in almost anything, but when it comes to the associate degree for transfer, this is mostly representative of the more common majors, such as psychology or computer science. And this degree is just for transferring to CSUs. In the case that your community college does not offer an ADT for your major, your counselor will most likely just recommend you to choose one of the ADTs that are offered at your 2-year that align as close as possible with your major requirements. And the beauty of earning any associate degree is that it automatically fulfills all of your general education requirements. So this means that your lower division education is completed after attaining your degree, which means that there's less work for you after you transfer, because sometimes when you transfer, if you haven't fulfilled certain course requirements, you're required to take it there, which costs more and is a greater time investment. Likewise, one of the many wonderful things about the ADT is that it prepares you for the perfect 2-year timeline after you transfer to your desired CSU. It also adds a 0.1 GPA boost, which is especially helpful in making you a more competitive applicant when applying to CSUs where you know your intended major is impacted. And by impacted, I mean that there's a lot of people who are in it, which would make the program more selective. But, and this is my favorite part, but let's say you don't get into the CSUs you had applied to. The ADT makes it so that regardless of whether you were rejected from your top schools, which consists of the schools that you had applied to, you are saved a spot within the CSU system. Granted, it may not be the most popular CSUs, but by indicating that you have satisfied the ADT degree, you will be presented 2 options. So in other words, 2 CSUs that have space for you and your major, and you will be guaranteed admission into one of them. This is why Taylor had said to me that the ideal student for an ADT is one who knows they are going to solely apply within the CSU system. As for TAG, so this pertains to those looking to apply to UCs. Note that not all the UCs offer this agreement. So UCSD, Berkeley, and UCLA unfortunately make up the ones who do not, but every other UC does have TAG as an option. Now, the number one reason, according to Taylor, as to why students will get denied from TAG is the GPA requirement. Different UCs and different majors will ask for different things. So she suggests that you make yourself very familiar with the UC websites so that you can get a sense as to what exactly they're looking for. She also recommends that if you do begin on looking into this information, and again, I'll also provide these links at the end of the presentation, you should refer to UC Davis's, because it's very clean, it's very organized and super easy to follow. It's actually what she used to show me how a TAG works. UCs are also very well aware that some majors have some requirements or have some more requirements than others. So for example, if you major in biology, you have a lot of science courses to take. Because UCs understand that, they have a specific request for your major in terms of what they expect to be done by the time you are about to transfer. TAG is also more time sensitive than ADT because at least in ADT you have some more freedom in when you choose to complete the classes or what order or even changing the major in which the ADT is for. TAG asks that you have 30 units completed by the time you apply while maintaining a certain GPA, and the application period will take place a year before the academic year in which you plan to attend. So if I were to apply for school in 2022, I would be applying in the fall. So that in 2022, I would be coming into to whatever university I get accepted into. TAG also asks that you have 30 units. Oh, sorry. I already said that. You will need to meet with a counselor to make this agreement. So I recommend meeting as soon as possible. You will also need to have certain courses completed by the time you apply, which consist of, I believe, 2 English comp courses and 1 mathematical reasoning course. Again, this information is outlined when you look up what's required in TAG. But what's fantastic is that you are notified in 1 month of submitting your TAG, whether you got in or not. So you'll be submitting this in October, and then by the November, you will be informed whether or not you were accepted or denied. And then if you do get in, you will complete the regular UC application to officially apply to that school. Although even if you are accepted under TAG, you aren't necessarily bound to accepting it. You are more than welcome to say, hey, thanks, but no thanks, which is why students tend to do TAG as, I don't want to call it really a safety school, but when they're applying to UCs, they will apply to whichever UCs they like to apply to, but then they tag one school. If you don't get accepted to TAG, so if you get denied under the TAG agreement, Taylor really wants me to hone in this message that everything's going to be okay. It's not the end of the world. She has yet to see one of her students get denied from TAG and general admissions because those are 2 separate things. They're 2 separate applications. So don't worry too much and just do your best in getting your courses done while keeping in mind your specific GPA requirement. And to conclude this presentation, I know that some of you were also interested in how enrollment has been affected by the pandemic, and Taylor was able to look into some data regarding that. The link to this article will also be included when I send it to the chat, but this is her response. So she says, I would just kind of mention that enrollment has fluctuated a lot, but in Ohlony's case, so that is my community college, it hasn't dropped too low, so it seems to be a bit varied. It's more about the pandemic making people really face the jobs, careers, and lives they lead, and having the time to evaluate that and see if they want to continue in that direction or go in a new one. That comes in many forms, like going back to school or deciding not to attend school at all. I will say overall, community colleges have stepped up in a lot of ways to meet the needs of students during this pandemic. At Ohlony, we have a whole committee just dedicated to technology and to see where students need help. We also have a committee that is about returning safely to campus when that does happen. We also, in the counseling department, offer all of the same services we did before, including mental health services, all remotely either through Zoom or phone call. I think it'd really be interesting to include what I've seen from a 4-year standpoint. So a lot of my peers have actually taken a gap year. A lot of them it's about split for me, half and half. Half are continuing with the online schooling, half are taking time off. And the reasons for taking time off, that's also highly variable. I have friends who are in homes that don't really allow for an environment to study in. It's not an ideal place to do work. I've had friends who go to the bathroom to take their exams. They go in their closets to take meetings. And because that's just not how they would like to conduct school, they take time off. I also have friends who, when they return back home, they now have also returned to a multitude of responsibilities that they must attend to. Hence, they choose to discontinue their school for however long they need to discontinue it. So this makes a lot of sense to me in this article, why you see this fluctuation. And what I really like about this article is that it emphasizes the disparities that come in certain populations, because there are just some populations that are having more of a challenging time with this. So I highly recommend that you read this article. I think it's really good in synthesizing the information and displaying it in a digestible way. But other than that, I just want to say thank you so much for having me. I hope you enjoyed the presentation. It is always such a joy and such an honor and privilege for me to speak about community college and to spread this message and have people willing to listen. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Nicole. So I know there's a couple, I'm not sure there are too many questions in the chat. There were a few. So one, I wasn't sure if you answered, was just if you could share what you've gained in community college that helps you strive, sorry, helps you thrive at UCLA. And was there some type of adjustment to the pace of study?
What I've gained in community college to help you. I was equipped with confidence when I left from community college. So having been there, done that, had such a hard time in transitioning. When I went to UCLA, I had already had the mentality of I can do it, and that was really helpful. But what was really hard is I moved from a very supportive, connected environment into quite an independent one. And I remember feeling very shocked because you were really, or I had felt very left behind in when I transferred to UCLA, and that's just because of the independent nature that it fosters. It's not on UCLA itself. I think UCLA does a fantastic job in fostering a transfer community. As for the pace of study, oh well, it was really fast. It was really fast, but that's also because I came from a semester system in community college into a quarter. And if you're unfamiliar with the differences between the two, in one academic year, you have 2 semesters. And also within one academic year, you'll have 3 quarters. So semesters are a bit slower paced, whereas quarters always felt like I was flying by the seat of my chair. It wasn't impossible to adjust to. I think that when it just takes time to transition, but that is just a part of the process in any period of change.
That would be a change. So when you're attending community college, can you enroll in a UC or a CSU to take more advanced classes that are not offered? I assume you could, but would have to pay for that, right?
I actually am not sure. My gut is saying that you can't, because you would have to be, there's class capacity, for example. So if you were to join a class, you would also be competing against students who are enrolled at that university, students who waitlisted, and even if there was space, it would still be limited to students or individuals somehow connected to the university. So I'm just seeing space or capacity as a challenge. But I do know there are extension programs, so I would say that maybe you can take those instead.
Great. Does anybody else have any other questions that they want to ask? I'm not seeing any else. It's been so great to see you again and love having you here. Thank you so much for explaining it. Hopefully sometime maybe we can get you to come back and talk to the kids or something.
Anytime. I'm happy to do that.
Yeah, and just as a note for everybody, I can't remember if you said this, Nicole, but Nicole went to a school very similar to South Pass High, which had very, very strong academics and, had a lot of kids going to very advanced colleges and all over the place. So I think that's one of the reasons I wanted to bring her in here, was because she was already at a place that was very similar to what our kids experience at South Pass High, where you've got people going in all different directions. You have someone who might want to go and do woodworking or become a plumber, and someone who's going to Harvard and Yale, and all of it's awesome. So we wanted to just make sure all of our students and parents understand all the different ideas that are out there and how everybody can be successful in their own awesome way. So I thank you for sharing that.
Of course, and thank you again for having me. This is highlight of my week, highlight of my month.